And we are live.
Nice.
Anyone who's already here, thank you for joining. Please leave a comment for us to tell us your name, where you come from, or where you are at the moment. Anything you want to say. Pavlo, let's give them a couple of minutes, please. You know, it takes some time for people to join.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
I can see there's Mohammed who already said hello to us.
Yes. Awesome.
And
Hi, Panayotis.
Panagiotis.
He says, hello, everyone. Because we are live in multiple platforms,
Ah, true.
we see here the centralized, like from all platforms.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be repeating the comments. And Panagiotis says, hello, everyone. Panagiotis from Athens, Greece. How are you today, guys? I'm
Yeah,
good. I'm
we're
very
quite
good.
good. I've never been to Athens. I've been to Thessaloniki once to climb Olympus. But
Oh,
yeah, that was basically the only time I visited Greece.
okay. A fun story from Dimitar, in case you didn't discuss this. So he's like a mountain runner marathon guy, and he
Okay.
climbed from the sea level to the top of Mount Olympus in just under 2 hours.
No way. I don't think it's possible.
Yeah, he's an athlete. He's like
Oh wow.
participating in European. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Crazy.
Yeah,
Two
I
hours.
was.
He touched the sea, and then in just less than 2 hours, he was on the top of Mount Olympus.
This is crazy. I was
It's
struggling so much when I was climbing, so much.
same here. I didn't make it, unfortunately, but
Oh, really?
maybe yeah,
Yeah.
I was way too unprepared to achieve it. But Alauza from LinkedIn says, hello, everyone. Hello, Alauza.
Hello, Lauza, where are you from?
So, Pablo, next time you have an open invitation to Athens, you have an office here. If you can work remotely,
Oh,
the
absolutely.
the,
I would love to.
the
Honestly,
place.
man, I will use it. Like now you invited me, so there's no way for you to escape this invitation.
No, no. We love having people over our office because also our team works remotely, and the office is most of the days empty.
Oh,
So
nice. That's
yeah,
cool. I would love to. I would love to. Is it good weather now? Is it warm?
it's like 20 degrees at the moment,
Oh my God, I'm so
and
jealous.
it's getting chilly. And
Mm.
for us, chilly is like 15 at
Oh, okay,
night.
okay, okay, okay,
Yeah,
okay, okay. Well,
yeah.
lucky
But
you,
the
lucky
sun
you.
is out. The sun is out all day long.
Mm.
So yeah,
Well, you lived in London, so you know the struggle.
I unfortunately, yeah. But the weather for me, I used to live like in the 2000. Now the weather is so much better than it used to be. Climate change has some,
Oh,
yeah, yeah. The rain was like all the time, and now it hardly rains.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that
it's not that
alone.
bad for sure.
Mohammed says you need to work harder. I'm not sure what he's referring to.
I think he was
And
referring to Olympus, sort of ascending.
uh, yeah, maybe I'll tell the story maybe another time. Uh,
So you've actually tried, but you didn't get to the top, right?
I tried,
Oh,
but so we have a joke, kind of a running joke in Greece. We call it the morning of the champions, which is frappe coffee. It's like a Greek kind of way to have hot coffee and then smoke. So I started my day with a smoke and a coffee. So the i- yeah, I didn't give myself the best chances to get
yeah,
there.
definitely, definitely. Fair enough.
All right. So we have people joining, but let's start. We're kind of on a schedule here. So Pablo, officially welcome to our podcast. Our most of the participants are active students or alumni students. So we want a lot of your suggestions in regards to career development, your career in particular, and how this could be relatable to our audience. So, if you would like maybe to give a short speech about yourself, what you're up to.
Oh, that's a good question. So I started my career in marketing. So basically, I did an engineering school back in 2000. I graduated in 2012, and somewhere on the way, I realized that I was not aware how to make any money on engineer because I was not doing computer science or some other
Mm,
useful engineer. Right, I was doing mechanical engineering, which is heavily dependent on your country sort of industrialization state. I would call it this way. And
mm,
obviously, since I'm from Ukraine, and after Soviet Union collapsed, Ukraine lost quite a bit of its production capabilities. It's not like my degree was super useful, or I've seen a lot of opportunities to apply it. So I decided to just look around and see, okay, what could I do with all of this knowledge? Because it's not like I was not enjoying what I learned. It was more like I had to figure out how to make money now. And I found this opportunity, which was basically a free education for students who wanted to learn public relations marketing. And I randomly applied it without even knowing what's that. I applied there, got
mhm,
accepted to the school, got my first internship in a marketing agency, got my second internship, and then at some point I got offered a job. And then I really started in marketing super randomly just because I didn't know what else to do and I was not skilled enough to do something else really. So I was doing some very low level marketing jobs, was growing my career. And at some point, I think in 2013, I got an offer to join the largest media company in Ukraine to lead their digital marketing. And
mhm,
yeah, I joined them, moved from the agency to the in-house organization, helped to build a few things there. And we started producing a lot of digital assets back then. We started building some websites that we needed to build to support, to promote our shows, some interactive experience for our users, etc., etc. And at some point, I think in 2015, maybe, my former manager called me and said, "Hey, we are thinking of building this team that would focus on building all digital assets this holding owns: websites, mobile apps, smart applications, etc., etc. Would you be keen on joining and leading it?" And I was like, "Oh wow, that sounds like something that is a bit too complicated." But obviously, back then I was so up for a challenge, so I decided to take this call, and here I am, being I am maybe 24, 25 years old, probably, leading a team of 50 people, probably. And yeah, anyways, was building that. At some point, we started to build our local Netflix. Basically, this media holding obviously owned a massive catalog of content, and they wanted to stream it. So our team got a task to build a streaming system, smart TV apps, mobile apps, etc. And there was a product manager who was not called a product manager, but like the person who was in charge of the product on the business side. And we spent like a year building that. And then this person got let go from the company, and I was the only person who knew what this project is about and like what have we built so far. So they just said, now you go and launch it. And I was like, oh wow, okay, how do I launch a product? Okay, I know how to build stuff, right? But I have no idea how to put it and bring it to the market. It was absolutely random. I did this. It was, I would not say it was a massive success. It was, I mean, it was okay. But I
mhm,
realized that I'm really interested in the full cycle of a product development. So it's not only about kind of building this thing, but also making sure that users use it, making sure that it generates revenue, making sure that this entire thing makes sense. And I was super lucky because somewhere at that time I've learned about a product management school that they hosted, basically that Google and another tech company co-organized in Ukraine. And I blindly applied without even knowing what to expect. I went through like 7 or 8 rounds of selection of admission. At some
crazy.
and at some point, I made it to the program. the program was free. It was just there were so many filters on the way to get into that you had to go through. So I made it there. I graduated from the program, and I realized that, okay, I know how to build products in Ukraine, but I would be interested in kind of scaling this to a global level and see if I could make it on the global level with my skills. So I started looking for a job in the companies that would build products for big markets such as US, UK, like tier one markets. And I found this company called MacPaw, which is the largest independent Mac software developer in the world, I think. Um, and there I joined as a PM to lead their new venture called Setup.com, which is a subscription business for Mac software. If you are not a Mac user, imagine an app store you get your software from, right? And imagine that you don't have to pay for this software because it works like Spotify does. You've already paid your subscription, and within this subscription you just have this software available to you. That's what we built. We scaled this business from $0 to $3 million in annual recurring revenue in 2 years. Then I tried to build my own business. It was really funny. I went to China. It was my childhood dream to go to China, and I built an app for aspiring Chinese amateur rappers that helped them to record their first rap song. It's still in the market. It has like thousands of users. It's just I'm not working on this anymore. But it was a really, really fun project. Then I came back to Ukraine. Joined this company called Pavlo.com, which is the largest online marketplace for language learning. Basically, want to learn a language, you just go there and hire a tutor. This is the drill, really. Led multiple things there, but the biggest achievement was building their subscriptions program. They used to be a transactional business, and I helped to transform them into a subscription business, really, as easy as it sounds. And somewhere around that time, I got a job offer from Vice.com, which is one of the largest fintechs in Europe. Basically, the job that we are trying to simplify is moving money across the borders. If you have, let's say, UK pound, British pounds, and want to move them to your bank account somewhere in, let's say, India, we would simplify for that and make it in a cheaper way than other services would do. The mission of the company is making international money fast, cheap, and convenient. Yeah, that's about me, really.
Yeah, too many things, but I will start from the last point you made of Wise. I would like to thank you and all of your colleagues because we are using Wise, or I'm using Wise on a daily basis on my personal, but also professional. We have two bank accounts with you. The system is great. It's not just fast and cheap. It's also accessible. Banking, for some reason, has become so hard for like legit businesses to open to register a bank account.
Yeah.
And through Wise, we've been able, and I know many of our students who don't have all the paperwork, or their living circumstances are not the same as like other people. It's to me, Wise is democratizing access to banking. That's what I think. At least how the company you work for and with affects us. So yeah, really cool, really cool.
Yeah, well, I won't take a credit for this because,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
my role is fairly tiny, but obviously founders did a good job.
Still, yeah.
Yeah.
You have a beautiful product there. So many things to unwrap. My initial question would be: you started in this agency in the Ukraine. First of all, it's like 10 years, and you've changed so many roles. You've grown
Yeah.
businesses. You are an employee. You are doing so many things. I don't know where you find the energy to do all this. Actually, yeah, where do you find the energy? What motivates you?
That's a good question. I think it was way easier when I was a bit younger. I'm now 34, so I think it's like a considerable age already. When I was in my early 20s, it was easier, and now I feel like it's getting harder. Uh, So I think you just need to pace yourself really. And what really helps me is proper sleep and a lot of sports. Those two things really help me to keep myself in a good mental shape more than a physical shape. Because I feel like during, like, when the evening comes, I'm normally so informationally overloaded, because it's not like, also it's not like I'm a productivity beast, right? Like, as everyone, I do Instagram every now and then, I would kind of check TikTok every now and then, so it's like I consume information from every other flow. And it's just too many points to keep in mind. So if I don't release it during the gym class, or like during a yoga class or during a run, it's going to be very complicated for me. Like, just I'm just like, well, I'm not sure if they say it in English, but I'm just boiled if I don't do that. Like, my brain is melted. So that's it. I do cold deeps as well over weekend. Really helps me to keep myself in a good mental shape, and that's about it, really. I'm trying to minimize screens after work. When I come home, I try to use less screen. Again, it's not like I never watch a movie or anything, but I just try to do less of it.
Yeah, yeah. Nobody's perfect, and this in this day and age, TikTok and Instagram. You can follow us on Instagram, by the way. Uh,
I will do. I will do. Haven't yet.
so yeah, I agree. I also try to minimize. Recently, I rebought a Kindle ebook reader, to read there and not in my tablet, because
Yeah.
in the tablet it was like one app away to really go into
Yeah.
the abyss of TikTok and Instagram
Exactly.
Reels.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What was the point? You said that you were studying a mechanical engineer. Did you graduate the
Yeah.
university?
Yeah. I did. I did. Yeah. Yeah. I
So,
did.
so
I
what
did
was the
my
thought
master's
process?
degree
So, sorry.
of picking this profession. Of picking this profession.
Yeah, yeah. What was the thought process? Because you mentioned there is a lot of work in the mechanical and with your mechanical engineering background. What was your thought process at the point? What were the steps? Did you talk to
Well,
people?
to be fair, it's not like I had a very good thought process back then. It was more like,
Mhm,
oh, I need to go to study somewhere. Like, what
mhm,
sounds interesting? And I made a list of schools that looked interesting back then. Then I applied to a few schools, and that's where I got admitted. And again, I'm not sure if it applies to students around the world, but in Ukraine we have this dodgy, used to have this dodgy practice where if you are not accepted to uni by the age of 18, you should be sent to a military service. So it's
mhm,
either you go to uni or you do military service. I mean, it's not like 100% guarantee that you're going to be drafted, but it's very likely that if you're not accepted, you basically lose your extension. And obviously, nowadays, I would say it's changing, but back then, when I was a student, the overall perception of a military service was quite bad. So it's like it was almost considered back then as if you were losing time, because obviously our country was not in the state of war, and everyone was like, why would they do that, right? So for me, it was mostly like, okay, I really need to get accepted somewhere. Let's see where I can get accepted. And
mhm.
that's where I got accepted, really. So it was not a particularly like sophisticated thought process. It was more out of a need.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. And you studied marketing at the beginning after your
Yeah.
engineering
I mean,
degree.
during, but it doesn't really matter.
Okay, okay. And you took some internships. How did you land these internships?
Hmm.
How did you source them? What was your pitch?
Uh, that's a good question. So basically, obviously, back then it was pre-COVID, right? So most of these things were offline, and I would just make sure that I make my way to every lecture that is being hosted. Make sure that I made my pass to talk to a lecturer if I enjoyed the lecture that was given. So basically, I just started to build connections with people who were teaching. I would chat to them. I would kind of, if I was interested in their topic, because obviously, if I was not interested, I wouldn't even bother. And that's how I made my first connections. And then I was like,
Okay.
okay, Are there any other events where people from marketing hang out in my city? Is there like are there meetups? Are there like some reading clubs? Like I don't know, like anything really. Back then, I didn't really know how this landscape is structured. So I realized that there were a few events that looked like people from the industry go and hang out there. And I just decided to volunteer there. I was like, okay, do you kind of need some help or whatsoever? So I would come there and do, whatever was needed to get the event up and running. And that's how little by little I built some visibility in the industry. I made some connections in the industry. And I remember at some point I just there was an opening, an internship opening in the agency where someone I knew worked, and he just came to me and said, "Oh, you know what? Like, would you be keen on joining and trying yourself out?" It's not just like I was super keen, but also I didn't have better options, so I was like, "Okay." Anyways, like worst case, I just bail out at some point. So that's how I ended up. Was really, but I think what really helped, if I kind of make it practical, is build connections with people in a natural way, right? It was not like I just don't see that how sending another cold LinkedIn request could help you. But if you chat to people one, two, three times during a work event, somehow you just built yourself a brand within this community. And I would not say it's like it's a strongly defined brand. It's more about like your face is recognized and you are not no one anymore in a way.
This is a perfect example, a perfect story of what we also suggest to our students. It's
Mm,
networking. I'm not sure exactly why, but people tend, it has a bad reputation. Let's call it like networking. It has a bad reputation, and it can become organic. Like in your case, I have a very similar. I had anxiety joining these events,
yeah.
and so I formed a strategy and I said, okay, so I will go to this event. For two events, I will not talk to anyone. I will attend and then I will leave. Then the
Mhm.
third event, okay, I'm going to talk to one person, even for a minute,
Yeah.
like just to say hello, I'm Damien, and then I left. So I kind of like, after many iterations, in a year's time, I had a solid network that allowed me and allowed our organization to have better chances and more people supporting, which is
Yeah.
yeah. But once you made and it can also start from a LinkedIn connection. It can start from that, but then it would be ideal, preferably, to meet at some point
Yeah.
for a coffee or what.
No, I think you nailed it. Honestly, I think you put it into a really nice structure. It's just you need to start from somewhere, right? And I feel like it's a bit of a muscle. If you never train it, it never works. And with
Yeah.
networking, like whenever you come to a new event, you're like, what do you even talk about here, right? Like, who are all these people? And everyone looks like they know each other already. So you don't really feel comfortable there as well. But as you keep, showing up, somehow you build this kind of natural, how do you even call it? uh, sort of skill to identify the conversations to become a part of or spot people who might be interested at or even like have your own conversation openers, and it doesn't mean that
Mm.
you need to bother people with that, but it just becomes more natural as you practice it.
Yeah. And it's, at the end, it's people. Like, if you like people, then people who really are interested in the topic, because you don't go to a random topic about, I don't know, cooking or
Yeah,
something. You go to marketing, product
yeah,
management, JavaScript, whatever it is. So you already have an established common interest.
yeah.
So you can start from that. What?
No,
So my
exactly.
question was like, what key point are you going to keep from today's event? That was my
Mm.
one question that I was asking everyone. And from that on, things started working.
Yeah, that's a good call. That's a good kind of hook to keep the conversation rolling.
Yeah. So let me go back to the very interesting your very interesting career journey. At 25, you mentioned that you somehow ended up managing 50 people. That's crazy in my mind. I cannot believe like a 25-year-old having this much responsibility. How was the experience for you? Did you enjoy it? Was it just anxiety? Did you like how
Yeah,
was the experience for you?
I think back then I had no idea what I was doing really, and I have no idea how in the world did I get this team to manage because obviously I was not prepared for that. I was not trained for this job. I had no idea what does managing people actually mean. Um, yeah, I had to learn everything from scratch, and it's not like I was doing the best job there. Like the outcomes of our work were quite decent, but I think it was mostly because I was lucky to work with people who were quite smart. But I would not say that my managerial capabilities were particularly strong. Just as you said, tons of anxiety, tons of uncertainty, tons of feelings that I have no idea what I'm doing, and I'm just living in a burning house. So I would not suggest. I don't think that becoming a manager in your early career is necessarily the best kind of career strategy because down the line, if you become a manager too early and you get like a ton of people to manage, you sort of think that it's normal. And then if you join a different company where the requirements are different and the, the requirements for managerial positions are different, you can get quite disappointed because you are already used to kind of own this title and consider yourself being someone who actually makes the final decision. So if I'm come back and just to kind of reiterate on this, I would have probably refused this offer of becoming the manager very early, just to make sure that instead of just becoming a general, I'm firstly a good soldier.
Actually, plenty of our alumni who are like 2 to 3 years of experience, so they are in the let's say mid-level engineers, and
Mhm.
because companies lack senior engineers,
Yeah.
in most cases, they kind of force them the title of senior, or they ask them to manage a small team, and they face exactly what you mentioned. It doesn't make sense in most cases. And some people, they are born to be managers, and that's okay. But some others are not or don't want to, so it's cool. How would you say no right now? Let's say we could go back in time. How would you say no?
Yeah, I think you need to decide what's better for you, not what's better for the company really. And I would have just said, I just don't feel like I would have just said, hey, I can only do that if someone who is more experienced can guide and manage me and can help me with kind of building my expertise, because ultimately refusing this opportunity straight away might be a dumb move. But at the same time, if this opportunity already landed, you might also want to figure out how to make sure that you fit the job description in a way. And ultimately it's since it has come from your company, it's in your company's best interest to make sure that you fit the role. Yeah, so I would have just tried to squeeze the mode out of my manager and make sure that he spends decent time on making sure that I'm a good fit for a job. Because I think that when you're very young and you do your first jobs, what's important is to make sure that you learn a lot.
Mhm. Yeah. Focus on learning, and management and big salaries. They will eventually come if you are good at what you do.
Yeah,
Your career is going to progress. The tech industry is huge. It's becoming bigger every day. There is always space for growth and bigger salaries.
no, exactly.
That
I think like
that's
ultimately, again, everyone's life is different and everyone's life circumstances are different. But I think it's not the best strategy to optimize for a salary from a very early kind of career sort of stages. Again, I appreciated that some people have families to support from very early ages, or have some life circumstances where they just need this money, right? And it's fair enough.
yeah,
But I
yeah,
think if you don't have any external pressure for meeting any financial sort of commitments, then I would have suggested to prioritize the speed of learning over the paycheck. Well, especially in the early years. Like eventually down the line, you'll get there, and at some point, I think it's reasonable to optimize for for the compensation. However, it's not only that.
I love what you said.
Mhm.
Speed of I would optimize for speed of learning, not for the compensation. That's yeah. That's a great thing to share because things move so fast in the tech industry. And yeah, your message makes perfect sense to me because also the compensation obviously is very important for all of us. We work for a living. We don't work
Yeah,
just for fun. It can be fun also, but focusing, especially in the early days, let's say 3, 4, 5 years, depending on you, of course, optimizing for learning will set a better foundation for you, more
yeah.
stable ground for you to go faster at a later stage, maybe.
No, exactly, exactly. And also your
Yeah,
ego. You keeping your ego low is important because you don't
yeah,
set unrealistic expectations for yourself then, and
mm,
down the line it drives better. And just drives better life for you.
yeah, yeah. Do you think at 25 your ego got a boost at the time, like
Oh,
managing 50
absolutely.
people? That's huge.
Absolutely, absolutely. And honestly, it took me quite a bit of like self work in order to get my ego back under control.
Yeah, yeah. Congrats. I know it's hard. I have faced similar challenges.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes, yes. In a different way, not at 25. I don't know how I could deal with that then, but yeah,
Mm,
it's certainly a thing. It's certainly a thing.
yeah.
From marketing, you pivoted to a PM, to a product manager position. What does a product manager actually does on a day-to-day basis?
Well, that's the hardest question about product management because it's very different from company to company and from business to
Okay.
business. Um, in a nutshell, I think product manager does three things. Thing number one is they provide direction to their team. Basically, they help team figure out what to build next. Number second, like thing number second, is that product managers normally protect the team from the noise around and create environment where team can deliver. And number three is that product managers basically build a culture within the team where instead of just shipping features, shipping code, engineer, like not necessarily engineers only, but like team members think about the customers and the problems that they solve for these customers. So those three things are very important, like foundational layers of every PM role. Making sure the guidance and the direction is there, making sure stakeholders are happy and they don't bother your team, and making sure that like basically in the team engineers, whoever you have on your team, does not require a PM to make a decision.
There is a lot of talk about like the PM to be technical or non-technical.
Yeah,
Where do you stand on this? Do you think they should have some technical background? Does it help? Is it like what do you think about this?
I think that having some engineering background or some like STEM background is really helpful
Mhm.
because you have to deal with numbers. You have to kind of be able to read the code at least. You have to be able to run some very simple queries in order to extract some data, like to self-serve some data. It doesn't mean that you need to be a full-fledged engineer or you're expected to write your own code. No. And in most of the organizations, you wouldn't even need to write your own SQL queries because they would be either self-served or there's going to be a kind of an analyst who helps you with that. But I think it just, if you are a little bit, at least if you're technical, at least to a certain extent, it just helps you to be more confident, and it helps you to understand how systems work. It helps you to understand where to look at if you want to kind of get information about this particular case, user, event, whatsoever. And it gives you kind of an end-to-end understanding of processes, right? Of like, okay, the process starts here and ends there, and you know what's in between. And it's not necessarily needs to be figured out by having engineering skills, but it helps a lot to be able to understand technical concepts at a certain level.
Mhm. That does the PM and the engineers we know they're supposed to be on the same side. They should be always on the same side.
Yeah.
But do you face in your team, or maybe from other people's experience, is there a clash between like what the PM the features that the PM brings to the team to develop and what the engineers want to actually develop? How does that work, and how do you handle such conflict?
I think it's great if engineers come with a project. It's incredible. I think your role as a PM then to make sure that your team spends time on the impactful things, and then you need to figure out kind of what does impactful mean in this case, and make sure that your team understands impact in the same way as you do. So you have like a shared wisdom within the team, and hopefully if you both see impact similarly, it means that as a team you could not argue but just compare apples to apples, right? If there's a project that came from an engineer and he claims that it will impact metric X by 10%, and your project will impact metric X by 5%, it means that your engineer just came with a more useful project, right? And it's incredible. I mean, to be fair, cases like this happen. And I think it's like a pinnacle of a PM job when you don't have to prepare projects yourself, when you know that there's your team who will eventually take care of it. Yeah, so I'm quite happy when this happens. And just as I said, I'm trying to cultivate it within the team, making sure that they are protected from the external noise. They know what to focus on in order to ship what's impactful.
Yeah, I love your approach and energy. It seems very fluid. I don't know. That's what it looks at least
Yeah.
in my eyes at the moment. And
Mm,
so many of like we are a school that we graduate mostly in full stack web developers, but
mm,
not many, a few of our alumni don't want to become engineers after all. They graduate, but they
yeah.
they realize that being full-time web developers doesn't work for them. And then PM, I would say, is like the one of the favorite options for them to go and become PMs. If with what you know now, and if you were to graduate, but in 2023, right? Not when you started your career, how would you go about it? Like having solid technical skills, not
Yeah.
crazy skills, but entry level, junior level skill set. How would you? What would be your education process in order
Mhm.
to get to become a PM?
That's a good question, to be honest. I think that being an engineer really helps because, just as I said, you understand how the systems are built. But I think what engineers quite often miss on is kind of is being able to understand what's important, what is not. So they like some of them look at project from the technical interest standpoint, and sometimes technically interesting projects are not necessarily the projects that drive the most of value. So I think the first step, like I think if I'm completely honest, like and cut the bullshit, I think the most important or the most useful thing for an engineer to understand what it means to be a PM would be to start uh, a small pet project. Like I remember at some point I started to sell T-shirts. I think it was 2014. We came up with a concept of T-shirts. We printed them. We started to sell them online, and at some point we sold like 500 units. And what was funny is that I've learned about refunds. I've learned about the delivery process. I've learned about warehouse management. I've learned about production. I've learned about distribution. I've learned about marketing, and I've all learned all of it just because I had T-shirts to sell, right?
Okay.
And it was like it's not something they taught me in school. And I think when you understand how many processes could be happening just to get the business up and running, like managing the cash flow even, right? How many things do you know in order to do you need to know in order to make a tiny bit of revenue? Makes you very cautious, you know. It's like you start to look at the system more from, well, from a certain 360 angle, sort of like you basically look at like from a helicopter view, sort of, when you do not prioritize what's important for you anymore. You prioritize what's important for the system to strive. And I think that that really helps to build this kind of product focused mindset.
Okay. Okay. You mentioned, I think I've been an entrepreneur for almost 10 years now. Cash flow management is still something that, it's the skills you acquire the skill, okay, you know how to read the balance sheet or how to create a spreadsheet, but it's constant learning, constant
Yeah,
updating your knowledge. How
yeah.
how do you stay updated and adapt to the rapidly changing tech landscape?
That's a good question. I don't really feel like I'm able to follow everything that is happening. I'm trying to follow, but I think I have reached that stage where I'm like, it's just too many noise, you know. It's like so much information. So then I'm just trying to surround myself with sources that I know are important for me and follow them. Because if you want to follow all the general media, and let's take this open AI drama and try to figure out what's happened there, like, yeah, it's a fascinating story, and like this the level of drama around it is insane. But at the same time, like, okay, if even if you would know how the heck did this board fire Sam Altman, how would this make your life? I would not say even better, but like, how does it impact your life, really? Like, probably not a chance it does. But still, like, I personally spent quite a bit of time reading about it just because I was interested, and I don't think it's particularly useful. So I would think that firstly, like, you need to separate what do you read for entertainment and what do you read for learning, and treat learning as learning and entertainment as entertainment, because you cannot cut on every like content piece that you consume, right? It's just not healthy. Just if you want to lose weight, you don't cut on everything you eat. You cut on something, right, and still allow you some healthy proportion of unhealthy food, let's put it this way. So that's what I think you need to apply to information consumption as well. As like, you know what's important for you, what's good for you. You have like some sort of a consumption scale and schedule, and you try to follow it.
Okay, okay. Uh, yeah. So you reading OpenAI is not educational. It's like you do it for fun, essentially.
Yeah,
That's
it's
how you
entertainment. It's
categorize it.
entertainment. If you really want
Th-
to kind of educate yourself about the topic, you need to have a proper schedule. You need to understand like what needs to be learned, what's the structure behind this learning, like what materials do you need to produce, how do you test yourselves whether you actually learn something. So like, well, as a coding school, you know that you need to practice your skills as well, right? It's not enough to just read about how a certain algorithm works. You actually need to try and write it and see if it works, or do some pair coding in order to understand how your peers would do the same thing as you did. And I think for me, it's just as important to make sure that, like, I have tried to start to learn French recently, and I'm taking classes, and I feel like as long as there's a schedule, I progress. As long as I design my entire life around French, because I know, okay, there's a class, I need to do my homework, I need to show up, I need to make sure it's happening, you know, then it works. But if
yeah.
I just take it, oh, maybe I'll take a class, it never works. You need to be like, if you really need to learn a new skill, you really need to be uh, very demanding for yourself, I would say.
Hmm. I have a question which is very selfish
Yeah.
on my side. You mentioned about a startup on supporting Chinese rappers
Yeah.
launch their first song. So how did this come about?
So that was a super random idea, basically. So that's a funny one. But in China, there's like a massive hip hop culture. It's like really, really big in terms of population. Well, China is big, right? And obviously, there are many people
Okay.
who would listen to different genres, but somehow hip hop is massive. And there's this formats called The Voice or X Factor or whatsoever. And can you hear me?
Yes, yes, very
Ah,
well. We didn't miss
sorry.
you at all.
Sorry, sorry. What I was saying is that there's this big formats such as Voice or X Factors that are available around the world, and there's this format in China that is called Rap of China, and every episode of Rap of China is being watched by hundreds millions people, which basically validates that there's a massive population who really enjoy the music like that. And when we landed to China with my former co-founder, we were like, okay, let's try to build something for this audience, but we don't really know what. So we started researching it. We started meeting people who are involved into the culture. We started meeting people who are artists or aspiring artists. We went to their studios. We've seen how they record their songs. And what we realized at some point is that there's a population of like youngsters who want to, well, they want fame, really. They want to achieve fame. They want to become stars. They want to make sure they've been seen and they've produced something that kind of that would last, but they are not necessarily supported by their families or friends. And the reason for that is because being an artist is not exactly, well, back then when we researched, was not considered by most of the families as something cool or something that would help you to excel in your life. So we decided to build like a safe environment for them where they could practice and just share feedback with each other. And whilst building that, we've also decided to fix a few problems related to the process, such as, for instance, we identified that one of the biggest problems for aspiring rappers was to find the beat to record a song on. So we've partnered with a generative AI company that knew how to generate beats. So we started to generate unique beats for this kind of people to perform on. Then we've learned that they mostly hate the sound of their voices unless it's filtered or auto-tuned. So
Okay.
we've partnered with a company. Oh no, we build these filters ourselves and install them into our app. So you just can filter your voice automatically. And we've done stuff like that. And then after we released, like we've started receiving installs organically just because, well, there was a demand for this and it was fun.
Okay. Okay. Lovely. And you've had such a career up and down between like an entry level manager, founder. Uh, you opted, so you built a big company. I think you mentioned 3 million monthly recurring revenue. That's a
No,
solid,
no, it was
like
annual. It
that's
was annual.
it was annual. Okay, that's a solid company. How come you did you exit that company? Did you enjoy the process of launching? So let me go to my real question. How was the experience between launching a company and being an employee? Which one do you prefer, or which one is more fulfilling for you?
I think I like both, to be honest. When you run your own company, you take more risks, but obviously your upside could be bigger, but also you could have no upside, right? When you are employee, you could have just as big upside or even bigger if you join the right company in the right time, right?
Mhm.
Um, like for instance, I joined Wise quite late, but there are many people who joined quite early, and even though they didn't have like massive titles because the company went public at some point, they managed to build wealth on that. And I think it's not a bad strategy as well, if you just want to make sure you optimize for wealth. I think at this stage, I cannot confidently say what I like more. I think it's more about I just take whatever destiny throws at me. Really, I feel like that's like currently I'm quite happy with where I am. At some point, I would love to come back to a fun founder path and try and build something new, but not necessarily. Like if this will never happen, I'm equally happy with that.
Yeah, yeah, really cool. Love your path. Talking about AI, it comes quite a bit. How do you see your field of product management being affected by AI? Are you using any tools on your day to day? Uh, do you think all managers like AI is going to take over the jobs? What is your stance in this?
Uh, well, personally, I do use it quite a bit, but mostly all the tools that people are aware of. Like I use ChatGPT quite a bit, mostly to structure some information and or to rewrite some information in a nicer way, because obviously I'm not a native speaker, so sometimes I just want to kind of sound more professional, and that's where I use the software for. Um, as well, we use large language models within Wise in order to work with customer contacts and just see what customers complain about. And imagine you receive like a ton of unstructured feedback from a million of customers. Like large language models help you to take the main topics of this feedback and structure it in a way where it becomes digestible and actionable. So we use it as well. um, I think that's pretty much it. Like my experience with machine learning in production in my products is not massive. Like we do have a few machine learning models that we use within the scopes that I own at Wise, but it's not something like very sophisticated. It's just a few systems that help us to make decisions on certain things. I'd say that like definitely generative AI will have a massive impact on the PM job. Not necessarily making us obsolete, but more I think amplifying us and kind of helping us to strive. Because I've used to spend so much time to just write nice emails, if you know what I mean. But not anymore. I need to do that because I just can go to ChatGPT and ask, "Hey, can you write this email for me?" Those are the inputs, and then rewrite it as a product manager, and that's pretty much it, really. And I think it's incredible. This productivity boost is already visible, and sometimes I kind of save hours for myself just by using it. And since I'm quite lazy, it's quite nice that these tools exist.
I have a very similar experience. I'm very bad at writing in general,
Mm.
syntax, grammar, especially in English. That is not, it's also not my native language. And I think I save over an hour per day just on the emails and communication, like the formal communication I have to do with partners, stakeholders of our organization. It really helps a lot. And I suggest everyone out there, you you have to at least give it a go. You have to check it out. The free version of ChatGPT is available to everyone. It's a bit slow, but it's there. You can use it.
I use the
So
free version like enough for me to be honest.
if I think if you use GPT-4, it's yeah, it's so much better. It's crazy,
Really?
but it depends also on the country. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Maybe you have like in UK the GPT-4 is the
Yeah.
free one. I don't know. Yeah. So if our we are closing to wrapping up our session today. If anyone has any questions for Pablo, now would be the best time slash only time to do so. So please go ahead in the comment section wherever you are joining us from.
Yeah.
Uh, but I have one maybe last question about skills. What new skills do you anticipate product managers? What skills will become crucial for product managers in the future?
Oof, become crucial. I think, and don't quote me on that, but I think that it's crucial for product managers to think about the bottom line of their actions. Because with the financial kind of environment being rapidly changing, I think it's completely unacceptable nowadays to just build for some vague metrics. And what you really need to keep in mind is that hey, your kind of work impact the bottom line of the business, which I think is how it should be. But at the same time, I feel like when companies were a bit more financial relaxed, they could have afforded to produce a bit more waste. Now it feels like everyone is trying to save, so you want to make sure that you contribute to that notion as well.
Is it difficult in such a big company as Wise, like to for you to pinpoint how you and the teams you manage particularly contribute to the bottom line? How is it? Is it
I would
different
not
between
say
like,
I would not say that advice it's complicated because the company is very bottom to top. So
okay,
it's very sort of bottom driven, which basically means that as long as you and your team are confident about the opportunities that you want to attack, and your peers confirm that it sounds legit or sounds like an opportunity that should be addressed, you have all the support you need to get it shipped. We don't it's not like this organization where you need to actually have a sign off from your kind of senior management. It's more about like as a PM you decide, and you decide based on the convictions that you build. And quite often people challenge you, but also you are there to address these challenges. So as long as you're confident in what you want to build, it's fine.
I have hopefully an interesting question for you. So let's say my pen is a magic wand,
Yeah,
and doing this, I remove any opportunity for you to work in the tech industry. So no
yeah,
more PM, engineering, nothing.
yeah.
What would you do? What career would you choose?
I think I
It
would
can be anything.
bake bread.
Bake bread.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've done a bread making workshop recently, and it was incredible. I've really enjoyed making focaccia, sourdough, all this cool stuff.
Okay, lovely.
Yeah.
All right. I don't see any questions at this point. Do you have any last thoughts that you would like to share before we wrap up today?
Just want to say thanks for having me, and I really appreciate the invitation. Feel free reaching out to me on LinkedIn if you have any follow up questions. Damian, thanks for being a good host.
Thank you, Pavlo. And I repeat, the offer. You have a co-working. So Panayotis actually. So yeah. So anytime you're in Athens, we are here. Panayotis asked a quick question. Does Pavlo suggest certain training and certification prior to pursuing a PM position? Do you have any suggestions on that?
Yeah, I think that certification is not important for a PM position in general. It doesn't help you to find the job. What's
Okay.
important is having something you worked on. That's where aspiring PM programs come handy, where you just go somewhere in order to build your kind of first projects, like internship. And then how can a junior dev graduate without any dev work experience can jump directly to such role without having hands? Um, yeah, so basically it's called APM. Just Google this. I know that Wise have APM positions. Uh, and that's, I think, the best way to get into product. Also, there is this role, product specialist, that you could get into, or product operations. Um, you could start from there. Not necessarily the best path, but like it at least helps to get into the company with having product aspirations. Because landing your first job as product is quite like not non-trivial. It's very confusing. There are no direct passes. So I would suggest looking for these roles in the beginning and see if something fits.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for your wisdom today that you shared with us today, Pavlo. Have a lovely day ahead. Thank you for your time.
Bye bye.
And thank you, everyone.